Hello again and welcome to Pearl Magazine. With space in Hong Kong at a premium, together with the cost of electricity rising, any space you can save, particularly in your fridge or freezer, is a godsend. A new technology which may allow meat to be kept fresh at room temperature for up to 2 years is currently being developed by a local startup. Our reporter Tina Zhang spoke to them about how it works and, more importantly, why we need this technology. Sirloin steak, sweet and sour pork, and roast chicken are just a few popular dishes on Hong Kong people's dining tables. Recent research conducted by the University of Hong Kong in 2018 indicates that Hong Kong has one of the highest meat consumptions per capita in the world at 664 grams a day. That's 2 10-ounce steaks each day for each person.
If you look at the data, we humans are consuming more and more meats, and there's no sign of stopping, even with the introduction of plant-based meats.
Felix Chung, CEO of a local food technology startup, has noticed the huge potential associated with meat production and problems as well.
In the meat industry, food safety and also environmental sustainability are the 2 key challenges that they are facing, especially with perishable items like meats and fish. Like any disruption in the food supply chain would mean a total loss of a container of products, which probably costs like several $millions. When they are delivered to the customers, there's like a lot of packaging and ice packed involved, like bulky items that cost a lot, and also there's a lot of wastage of materials.
Felix has a master's degree in food science and a PhD in physics. His 7 years of experience working as a science editor at an international scientific magazine allows him to read up on many research papers about the meat industry where he's found a possible solution to those issues.
We have developed this revolutionary technology called advanced sous vide aseptic packaging. It's a food sterilization and aseptic packaging technology that allows food like meats, fish, seafood to be stored at room temperature without refrigeration. We eliminate all bacteria that will spoil the food. We don't need any chemicals or preservatives to make the food remain shelf stable. If we can circumvent cold chain, that will allow us to reduce the amount of energy used and also reduce the carbon footprint.
In 2013, Felix and his partner started doing research and later launched their food technology company in 2017.
Here we have a clean room facility where we can package the product under very clean conditions to ensure that no bacteria will contaminate the meats and spoil the meats.
This pilot factory inside an industrial building in Fo Tan is where they process the meat manually.
We can produce about 500 kilograms of food products per day, but that process is not very cost economical. And that's why we are building a commercial line in Canada, where we are aiming for 4 tons per day production capacity. That production capacity is still small in the meat industry standard, but demonstrates that we have the ability to scale up the technology. And once we prove out the technology, we will go for 20 tons per day, which is more in line with the industry standard.
The company is still in the process of applying for patents in different regions.
The process is patented, and also it involves a lot of trade secrets. One particular aspect of the process is the flash sterilization. What that flash sterilization does is it raises the exterior temperature of the meats where the bacteria resides to 160 to 180 degrees, like very high temperature. This high temperature will very quickly zap or kill the bacteria on the outside, making the product sterile so that it's fit for aseptic packaging. And then out comes a product that looks slightly different to your conventional chilled products, but it tastes exactly the same. Here we have like
He claims that after applying the technology, fresh meat can stay shelf-stable for at least 2 years.
These are salmon that we packaged back in 2021. And as you can see, they still look edible and look very presentable, slightly aged.
Felix is also confident that his products will taste almost the same as fresh produce because it's never overcooked. Today, he's taking some samples to a chef for professional feedback.
Hey, Seth.
Hey, Felix.
How's it going? Long time no see. How's business?
Okay.
Nice.
How are you?
I'm good. I brought in some products
Thank
for today.
What do we have?
I got you some Australian Wagyu steak
thank
and
you.
some Canadian pork chops.
Seth McKenzie is the executive butcher at a local restaurant in Saiangpun.
So I've been in F&B for 25 years now. I'm very, very interested, very passionate about meat.
Seth will grill the meat. He starts by adding a little bit of seasoning.
Been in the industry for as long as I can and seeing waste just because fresh beef has a shorter shelf life. I think on the standpoint of you being able to preserve it for as long as you can, being in the industry, I think in that sense is very interesting because you just have less waste, less product going into the bin.
The samples Felix brought were packed a month ago, but that doesn't seem to scare Seth away.
Seems pretty safe to me. We import all of our meat directly from Australia and New Zealand. It gets flown in a chilled container. I think you run risks with time and temperature on when you import any meat. It could be chilled, frozen, anything. If something goes wrong along the delivery chain, then there's always a risk of loss or food safety. All right, let's try.
Wow. Looks appetizing.
That's really tasty. Very juicy. Nice. The texture and taste is almost the same as the chilled beef that we sell. I really, honestly, probably couldn't tell the difference if somebody didn't tell me that it was not just chilled meat. So I think it's pretty impressive. So just take a bite, tell us what you think.
The meat was also shared with 2 random customers dining at the restaurant.
So gentlemen, do you like the steak? Good. What if I tell you that this steak has already been stored at room temperature for 1 month?
Ah, wow. I would have never guessed. It tastes like a steak that was kept in a refrigerator, not like one that was kept outside.
You like it, right?
Very good.
Quite surprising that it's been kept in room temperature for that long, and so it's technology. It's good technology actually.
The new technology seems to work, but is it 100% safe? Pearl Magazine reached out to different institutions, scholars, and the government for their input. Only the Center for Food and Safety got back to us. In a written reply by the government, a spokesman for the Center for Food Safety says the manufacturer has to ensure that the food is processed or packaged without increasing public health risks, adding that bacteria concerns and hurdles, such as pH and salt content, should also be addressed.
We've spent many years of our time working with our corporate partners to verify the repeatability, reliability, and safety of our process. They have all demonstrated there's no microbial growth. We also conduct accelerated shelf life tests and also independent lab analysis to show that our product is 100% bacteria-free. We are now working towards getting FDA approval and also the approval of the Canadian authorities, which includes Health Canada and CFIA.
In the future, Felix looks forward to licensing out the technology to large meat corporations all around the world.
When meat processors want to adapt our technology, we would actually need to go in to their plants and actually study the plants and then redesign the plants to fit the criteria of the hygiene that we need to achieve the aseptic packaging. They would also need to purchase special equipment from us. We also generate recurring revenue through the provision of services like operational training, food product development, and also auditing and food safety training.
By doing this, Felix believes his new technology will have a huge positive impact on the environment.
We estimate that by adapting our technology worldwide, we can actually reduce the carbon footprint of meat, fish, and seafood by at least 20%. In fact, we have worked with many independent organizations. They have conducted independent greenhouse gas reduction emission analysis that show that if we adapt our technology today, the carbon footprint associated with logistics worldwide will be reduced by half. That is equivalent to saving 2/5 of the Amazon forest every year.
When we return, an Egyptian-Chinese connection in Hong Kong with celebrity chef Bobby Chin. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pearl Magazine. Hong Kong is home to some of the top restaurants in the world and often has famous chefs coming to visit. Celebrity chef Bobby Chin stopped by the city the other week to showcase Egyptian cuisine. Known as the chef who put Vietnamese food on the culinary map back in the 90s, after opening his award-winning restaurants in Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, Bobby spoke with Pearl Magazine about his culinary journey from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange to being a comedian and finally to finding his joy in the kitchen.
My parents were totally opposed to it. There was no support for that. My mother says, we don't have cooks in our family. You're wasting a very expensive education. I think your parents, they paid all this money to become, study finance, and all of a sudden you got really great jobs, and you're like, cook? Have you lost your mind?
At the time, Bobby worked in finance and told his parents he wanted to become a chef. This was the 90s when being a chef, better known as cooks back then, was less than glamorous.
So I gave my mother the choice. Either you're gonna have a chef in the family or a clown. Which one do you want? I always gave her an option that made the first option sound better, but she didn't take the bait. It was my grandmother's. My Chinese grandmother in particular, tell me the first dish you cooked. How was it? How did you get this technique? And she educated me. And she was educating me out of love. But I had this really incredible feeling before I go to work every day, which changed my mindset. I was like, I can do this, because she made me believe I could do it. And the same thing with my other grandmother. My Egyptian grandmother was very, very sweet. She helped, just the words, just of the encouragement.
The son of a Chinese father and Egyptian mother, Bobby visited Vietnam in 1993 at the encouragement of his father, who was doing some consulting there at the time.
I went to the bookstore to go learn about Vietnamese food, and there was no cookbooks. And I realized that the U.S. embargo on Vietnam had created, a cultural divide to the extent that people only knew Vietnam as a war.
And thus began his Asian culinary journey. So how did he manage to put Vietnamese food on the hot cuisine map?
I just got there first. That's all I did. And I found just a beautiful country, wonderful people, and an incredible cuisine. So looking at the cuisine, I just immediately saw it as a modern cuisine perfected thousands of years ago. It had everything that every great chef talks about contrast of colors, of temperatures, of textures, sweet, sour, hot, cold. It had it all. And these people were doing it in their pajamas. I was like, one dish. I'm like, wow, complex, simplicity, all this stuff. And I was like, I want to learn this food because I think it's a new food. So I just got there before everybody else, and I believed in it. And I continually failed over and over again when I was in Vietnam, which made me kind of angry. So I kept on trying.
In 1996, he moved there and eventually opened several restaurants in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. He says failure played an important role on the road to his success.
I think my success, if you can call this success, is built on the foundation of failure. I don't recall, succeeding at anything without really struggling. Nothing really came that easy, I believe that fear of failure motivates me, and anger. I slept in the restaurant for 9 months when I was failing. I said, I'll go down with this ship. And you just put the time in, you keep on trying, and it eventually happened.
Bobby's culinary journey is a reflection of his life, what he's learned and experienced.
When you're a chef, people want to learn from you, but I'm kind of like the opposite. I want to learn from them, and I can show you what I've learned because that's what food is. It's about a sharing experience of knowledge, of techniques, and since I was traveling all over the world as well, I was learning all these different things.
He says he spent months learning to make great pho.
I had to learn the ingredients. I had to learn the processes. In the old days, they were open 24 hours. So I would show up at 12 o'clock in the evening, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 24 hours. During the period of about 2 months, I watched every single process from that, and I figured it out. I learned so much from my staff. They taught me so much, and they did things that they actually elevated a lot of the things that I was doing.
What are some of the techniques that you learned in Vietnamese cooking that you have actually carried over to other cuisine?
Which was what the Vietnamese would do. They'd take their bones, veal bones, pork bones, chicken bones, whatever, and they'd put it in water, they'd bring it to a boil, they'd dump the water. And they'd do this, 2, 3 times. They figured a way to make very, very clear stock, ridiculously tasty. Charring ginger and an equal ratio of shallots changes the flavor. And the punctuation of dishes using herbs, I think, is something that I really appreciate. Just rip it up, throw it inside, and one bite tastes like mint, the next bite might have a little bit more accented towards cilantro or fresh coriander, and those types of things were really kind of cool. The zero waste was another thing that I picked up a lot from the Vietnamese. They didn't throw anything away.
At what point did your parents finally recognize, like, oh my God, our son has a future in this, he's pretty good?
I think it's when the American ambassador, Pete Peterson, someone introduces, this is Bobby Chin's dad, right? That all of a sudden I became the person, not, and that I think was something that he was touching. And now I'm doing these TV shows in the Middle East, and then it's like, your son's famous. I was like, my son is famous. I was like, but I'm poor. My poor Chinese father is like, my son, he's famous, but he's poor.
But he says this doesn't faze him. The food-strewn path he's taken has not only brought him joy, it's made him a household name through food shows on Discovery, the Food Network, CNN, and BBC, to name just a few networks he's worked with. Currently, he's a tenured judge on NBC's Top Chef Middle East, and he's exploring Egyptian cuisine more these days.
The relationship to food for the Egyptian cuisine was really brought about by going to Egypt at the age of 8. And just the connection and just discovering new flavors as a child, I might have taken it for granted, but I definitely did enjoy eating, like the fool. I ate brain, they like brain over there. I have no fear of food, and I'm very open.
Bobby says he's mostly vegetarian, a flexitarian vegetarian.
It's like being an alcoholic and owning a winery, you know what I mean? I make all this stuff, but, I can't trust it. I'll taste it to make sure it's okay. Like I can appreciate a perfectly cooked piece of steak. I can appreciate a perfect duck confit. I know the technique. I know the feeling of what it feels like to take it, to marinate it, to weight it, to clean it, to wash it, to sear it, to confit it, to pull it out of the fat, when it's solidified, and then, searing it and having a crispy skin and having melt tenderness. I know that. I know it's good. But as I say, I'm a conflicted soul.
He does make an exception for Hong Kong cuisine, though.
Dim sum. I just can't, dim sum, and I'll break down where I'll wave the vegetarian thing because it's like I'm here, but I'm not gonna eat the duck. You crazy? You gotta have the lobako nome gai. I like dan pot, chicken feet, chow fun, the noodle one, not the fried rice one, the fried noodle one. I could go eat it at a really swank restaurant, but I can't eat great street food everywhere. And this has got great food, everywhere. Yeah. It's really an incredible food city.
Zero waste is something Bobby tries to achieve with his cooking.
I think that chefs really are geared towards feeding people. We're hospitable people. We want to feed people. It's a generous thing. It's an act of giving. To throw away food is kind of sacrilegious. When you look at food waste at being 8% of greenhouse gases, which would be the third largest polluter if it was considered a country after China and the United States, double the amount of the entire continent of Africa.
He adds he always wants to make the diner feel special if they're eating at his restaurant.
We're here for everybody. And so sometimes you're in an expensive restaurant, the person saved a lot of their hard-earned money to be eating in your restaurant, and even though they can't afford the nicest bottle of wine or order the most expensive dishes, this was a special occasion for them, and I was out to do that for them.
For now, Bobby continues to push himself, exploring the world, discovering new things he enjoys. I asked him how he views success.
Success to me is, are you happy? Rich people wearing expensive clothes jump out of very tall buildings, right? So it ain't money. I'm a work in progress. I'm not claiming to be that I've arrived, or I will continue to try to do new things.
That's our show for this week. Join us on Pearl Magazine, same time next week. Bye for now.